I'm Bo Counts, host of the Drive-In Speakerbox. I go by the moniker The Boom Operator.
I am Jake Howell. I'm co-host of the Drive-In Speakerbox, and I am the Grip.
I started this show back when I was doing college radio at KXUA, and I helped start that station like my freshman year of college. And I started the show, the Drive-In Speakerbox, with another guy named Michael Little. And at the time, the show was all just film scores, and we would come in. It was a 2-hour show, and we would talk about weird film scores. We tried to avoid all the big, Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams, all the stuff that you've already heard of. We're like, we're going to play like Italo or giallo horror, Italian film scores. We're going to play these, Tangerine Dream, like crazy atmospheric film scores, and educate people on that side. But we didn't talk much. And then as the years went on and I went through several different co-hosts, I eventually twisted this guy's arm enough because he doesn't like cameras. He doesn't like, and I was like, dude, if you could just come up in here and record us talking about movies,
right?
I think it's going to be an interesting new direction for the show. And then here we are. The show's an hour long, sometimes like a few minutes late if we get to really talking about Indian movies.
They're so good, man. I don't know.
But
there's a lot to talk about.
There is, because they're always like 3.5 hours long. But it starts off the same. We open up the show, we say hey to everybody, and we talk about what's happened the past 6 days in the news. Like if there's new trailers that are dropped or new projects that have gotten greenlit, if a celebrity died or got in trouble or, whatever. We talk about that for about 15 or 20 minutes. And then we have a segment where we talk about what's coming in theaters this current weekend, because movies get released every single week. So we'll kind of give people a heads up, like, hey, this is what to expect this weekend in the theater, get you ready, and kind of also give you a preview of what we're probably going to talk about in the next week. And then after that, we take about 20 or so minutes to review a movie that we saw. And or two if we've seen multiple. And then at the end of the show, we talk about the box office roundup for the past weekend. So we do a domestic box office report, which, we found, and it's something we've been doing for years, that if you understand, just like any good conspiracy theory, like follow the money, and if you understand where the money's going, you can understand where the industry's going, and if a movie does well or does poorly, you can anticipate like what style of movies, what genre of movies, what sequels are going to happen, what sequels aren't going to happen, and you can kind of really
learn how to be a producer.
Learn how to be a producer, yeah. And so we found we've got a couple of viewers that are just really obsessed with the numbers, and it's kind of like watching the stock market, And
well, there is that movie stock market game,
Hollywood Stock Exchange.
Yeah, one of our viewers kills at that one.
Yeah. They just eat it up. But we give that breakdown every week, and then that kind of wraps up the show. And then we do it again the next week. And it's that same format. So you can kind of, unlike a lot of podcasts that are just like, well, we're just going to hang out and talk about sandwiches for 45 minutes. We try to at least, guide the show. It's like if we go too far down a rabbit hole about Skittles or peanut M&Ms or Dungeons and Dragons Mellow Yellow or whatever, we can go, oh, okay, well, now it's time to talk about new movies. And I think that format and that structure helps keep us on track, number
That's
one,
true.
But also keep people from getting bored.
Yeah. So there's the structure, which is there, but not exactly rigid, and a bit of goofing around in between. We used to be able to have the music, and we would have special interaction with the people that were just on the stream while the radio audience was getting one thing. And then now it's fully interactive with, I think, almost everyone that watches or listens. And I have people that come up and say they don't always watch it live, but they'll catch it and listen later on. But they're also the same people that'll interact with us from time to time. So there's a entire new element to it where you have a direct interaction with people as you're doing it, which, we don't script it or plan it before we get here. So those interactions.
It's like, hey, dude, what movie did you see this weekend? And we're like, all right, bet. I know what to title it. And, but it really evolved because in the radio days, we're not talking with guests. We're playing music, and it was very talk light. And because the rules of copyright are different on radio, you're under that FCC protection where you can play copyrighted music. on the streams, on the internet, you are not. And that's why so many of our older episodes we can't publish online. I mean, we're pushing almost into the thousands of episodes of the Drive-In Speakerbox, but so many of them are not available because they, you download that podcast and go, well, the rest of our band owns the rights to, whatever film score. So
the one episode where we had the producer and you guys pushed it and we had music too long, and the whole time I'm like, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. And that episode got flagged. Like within 30 minutes of us ending the episode.
Yeah, so. Sony was like throwing the hammer down. But when we introduced Periscope and we introduced, this was pre all the live streaming, Twitch wasn't even a thing really. It really injected this crazy new element of we're talking with the guests live. Like Jake said, but we're playing music while the mic is off and people are enjoying this side of it. We're interacting with some guests, but then so much of that interaction was distracting us from the show, and we just kind of wanted to focus on that. And when we decided to cut ties completely with the FM broadcast, it really changed the show from being a 2-hour-long music and talking to just hanging out with our guests. And one of the things that I love about the show that's different from a lot of streams and podcasts is you get 1 hour of us. It's not like, every two white guys that are friends have a podcast now, but you can hear the edits, you can hear the scripting, you can hear the cuts, you can hear the redos. This is live, and we interact with what's coming into us from our audience, and it can change the whole course of the show. And there's not a lot of podcasts that can say that, and people ask who edits. We don't. And they go, wait, you don't script this? You don't, because we don't sit and go, oh, very often. Except we've just been doing it for 15 or more embarrassing long years.
Or whenever we run out of something, since it's movies, I can always insert the Garth uncomfortable on the couch thing, Like,
you are
I'm having
Garth.
a good time. Yeah, but it's movie related. It's the reference there, so it's still fun.
One thing that has always driven me absolutely crazy about reading movie reviews online, listening to film podcasts online, and just our YouTube channels online is how many people are out there reviewing movies that don't know anything about movies. We used to actually be a lot more technical about like the movies and behind the scenes and stuff than we are now, because both of us, I guess, are kind of passionate about how the movies are made and everything too. We used to talk about like the inner workings of the cinematography and the shots and the stories that those things would tell, and the audio design stuff. No, I mean we weren't stuck up about things or anything, but we talked about that a lot more than we do now. Well, I think that's what makes people like this show. Is that when we do talk about movies and an audience member will have a question, or someone ask them, we're being goofy, we're talking about Bill and Ted, we're talking about Strange Brew, whatever, but then if it needs to get serious, like, we can back it up with some actual facts, some actual experience, some actual history, and that's what fuels our discussions and our reviews of films, because I don't like putting a number rating or a star rating or whatever on a movie, because that kind of robs a person of that sort of, the difference between an objective and a subjective review, and like what that movie means to you. Like, what you as a viewer bring into that movie is going to be different than what we bring into that movie, and your enjoyment is based on that. Do I enjoy Marvel movies? Not at all. Do I understand why people enjoy Marvel movies? 100%. And I'm not going to say this movie's terrible and you're dumb for liking it at all, because maybe you haven't watched the insane amount of movies that I have that have built up this sort of like disappointment for Marvel.
Well, I mean, and talking about what got us into it and our relationship with movies and things like that, I think to that point a little bit, watching movies and experiencing them and everything, like just the uncomfortable Garth moment, it always gives me some kind of reference to have in conversation or something to talk about with people. And somewhere in life, everyone likes at least some movie that's impacted them in some way. And if you know about movies and the things like that and film, and you've seen it or movies like it or have a point of reference for it, you have something to talk about that person with, and you can make friends you might not otherwise been able to, or have something to talk to.
The best common ground.
And I mean, still, like I said, that's how we became friends and are friends.
Yeah, because I think Fast and Furious is stupid. And
the last two of them may have been, but the first ones are fantastic. But it gives you something to talk to people about. And still, like, I think every day of my life I interact with someone and we talk about movies. And, yeah, whether I like the one that they do or not, or they don't like the movie. In fact, there's another local bar that I have friends that work at, and our interactions are generally, hey, did you see that movie? And, yeah, what'd you think about it? And no matter how it goes, it usually turns into like point A and point B standoff type situation. But we have a good time like that. We're very good friends because of it.
Woo, the wall of junk. Well, I'll start small, and then I'll let Jake take over. This stuff, we both love movies, duh, and we love tchotchkes, and we also have a hard time getting rid of cool stuff, and to a point where it takes up too much room in our homes, and we're like, well, now we have a place to put it, which doesn't really help our spending habits.
That's probably true because, unfortunately, the studio ends up kind of being an outlet for overflow. But I do buy things specifically for here.
Oh, so do I. Because
it
I'm like,
does
do I
not
really
help
need
with
this?
the spending habit. Yeah,
it's for the studio.
Well, it's like, I'll text him pictures of stuff like, look what I found somewhere. He goes, sick, right? And it's like, all right, it's going to end up on the show.
Studio.
And this isn't all of it. You can see it's
stuff
behind you, it's
everywhere.
hanging up, it's to the side, but we rotate things to occasionally to make it interesting.
And Halloween, it's all like spooky stuff. And I think it is again a visual representation of fandom, right? And not to say it legitimizes how much we love and watch movies, but it does give visual references to movies that we may not be talking about on the show, but a viewer can look and go, oh, okay, they've got a VHS copy of Jury Duty up there. Like, that's random. They know what they like. Pauly Shore.
Yeah, and they can instantly recognize some of our interests and stuff. Like what we got, The Thing back here,
Invisible Man.
We got Turbo Man and stuff. I don't know what your camera can pick up what we were seeing, but we got anime for my weeb pal here. We got
Fast and the Furious cars.
Yeah,
for
we got it all
guy.
Over here. But I think it's representative of our full encompassing enjoyment of all.
Yeah, at least what they make toys out of. Because not all genres. I don't think there's a Schindler's List toy back here.
But that's why you have like the 1001 movies.
Yeah. But it's really interesting too because I think we were talking about this earlier. A lot of podcasts or streamers, they just stand in front of a green screen and they might have a cool backdrop that they downloaded off the internet. And we have a lot of viewers who are like, oh, that's a really cool backdrop. Where'd you get it? And I'm like, I built it. And I'll like grab an object and they go, oh, that's all real stuff. Like, I made this Eye of Sauron that's behind us. And, they're like, oh my God, that's all real stuff. And I think that again, it makes people want to interact more, and they're like, well, tell us about that thing. What is that? And yeah, it's fun.